Welcome back to the Pool Chasers podcast. I'm your host, Greg Villafana, joined by my co-host, Justin, the bearded plumber Bowie.
Yes, thank you.
And today we've got a very special guest. We've got Brittany Duncan of Design Ecology. How you doing, Brittany?
Hi, great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited to have you on the show. You were a recommendation given by, I think, your boss, Ben Lassiter. I'm sure nobody's ever said that before, like your boss. I can't see him as like being that type of boss, but you know what I mean.
No, I know. I'm very flattered. So thanks, Ben.
So he was telling us that you're super cool. You're very gifted at what you do as a designer. And we can tell because just given the backdrop that you have for us, can you tell us a little bit about what you got going on back there? Because it's kind of a cool story going on.
Okay, so the cow skull on the wall is from my uncle's ranch. He's a rancher out in Arizona. And I was looking for one for a while, and they cost like $300, and I wasn't going to do that. And he said, well, Brittany, just come down to my place. I've got a ton of them. And I was thinking, oh, perfect. So I went down there, and there was a pile of them, but it had all of the bits of skin and dead stuff on it still. And so I had to put it in the truck and take it back and put it in an acid wash and soak it and then scrub it all off. But yeah, that's a family cow, so straight from my uncle's ranch.
It's like a scene straight out of Yellowstone. You ever watch that?
I stopped watching it because it was a little too close to home.
Really?
I started getting mad at the characters.
When like the what was it, like the two women that started bunking in the whatever that house is, and they have the idea of like riding the buffaloes, and they actually do it. I was like, there's no way that's real, but that's some hardcore shit.
I didn't get that far, but I can imagine.
I'm an enthusiast. Well, anyway, that's a super cool story. Me and Justin were just saying that we got to figure out how we get our hands on one, and that might be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take you down if you're willing to, roll up the sleeves and put in some work.
Put on my Jeffrey Dahmer shirt that day and bring a tub of acid.
That's Justin. I will be filming that day.
We're pool people. We have tubs of acid laying around.
There you go.
Boom.
There you go.
So let's jump right into this. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about, your background and how you got to where you are with Design Ecology?
Yeah. So my name's Brittany. I grew up in the West, kind of right outside of Las Vegas, where the Hoover Dam is. And I guess I found landscape architecture because I heard that the National Park Service employed the greatest number of landscape architects, which is not really true anymore, but I would spend all my summers at Lake Mead kind of walking around there in my uniform and holding coyote pelts and like desert tortoise shells and talking to all of the people who were getting drunk at the lake and wanted nothing to do with me, but talking to them about the animals and the geology. So I loved that job. That was a summer job. And I ended up kind of going to school for journalism and making my way back to a master's degree in landscape architecture from CU Denver many, many years later, because I always remembered how happy I was kind of at that time with the Park Service. So in between that, I have a journalism degree. That was the first degree that I kind of, I don't use too much anymore. But in between that, I travel a lot, and I've lived in a bunch of different countries. So China, England, and Germany being three of them I spent the most time in. So I think kind of my design background is heavily influenced by, like landscapes of the West, telling stories, and my travels. And I found Design Ecology through one of my coworkers. He grew up with my husband, and he knew that I was a landscape architect and they were looking. So they had me out, and I kind of fell in love with the firm and the projects, and here I am.
Why don't you tell the listeners what it is that you do exactly with Design Ecology?
Great question. So Design Ecology, we're a design build firm based in Austin, Texas, and I would say we're most well known for our pools, which is why we're talking today. So people often hire us for the pools, and then we also do everything that's outside or not air-conditioned space. So that's often, like a pool cabana, shade structures, hardscape, fire features, and the plants around them as well. So my role at Design Ecology, I'm an associate landscape architect there, and I do everything from kind of quick conceptual drawings, meetings with clients, to budgeting the projects, and then figuring out if we sell them. I'm involved in creating the shop drawings and construction documents in order to build what we've designed and rendered for them. And then I also work with our subcontractors, and I'm out in the field often placing plants, project managing, some of the less technical stuff. Ben and Scott handle more of the pool side of that, but I spec all the equipment and the plumbing and the flows and everything as part of my role as well.
Hey, all right. Flows. I like
So
that.
really everything, every single piece of it, if it's my project, I touch it all. And that's really fulfilling when it comes out.
I was about to say, what the hell is everyone else doing? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, Ben.
So let's jump into some design questions, because, that's what you do with Design Ecology. So, what's a landscape architect, and how is it different than other landscape design roles?
Yeah, so I think people most commonly associate landscape architects more with like plant doctors or gardeners. I know all of my friends, they text me when their ficus starts turning brown or something like that, and I'm like, I'm not the right person. Although, plants are a huge part of it, I think that landscape architects are kind of trained to think of space as a whole and more about the architecture, the existing site conditions, and kind of circulation and flows. So more spatial designers than plant designers, although that is a fun part of it that we get to also do.
What are some things you take into consideration when you're designing a project?
I think the most important thing is the site context. In Austin, also the soils are really important, especially if we're going to be doing a pool. Half of Austin is very rocky, and that's kind of an ideal condition for us because the rock doesn't move. It might be harder to excavate down into, but once we do excavate, nothing's moving. And then the other half of Austin are clay soils, and they move a lot. And so typically that means steel reinforcement piers, and that can get really expensive very fast. So right away, site context, soil content, and then of course the existing architecture is probably where we go from there. How are people going to move from the inside to the outside, and how can we make that as seamless as possible? Getting all the circulation and flows right between the different elements is the major part of it after that.
What does that look like? When you talk about flows, like I've always heard, I don't know if this is a real thing, but I've always heard it's like a 50-foot rule. Like if anything exists 50 feet outside of your living space, you don't utilize it or something like that. Is that true? You ever heard that?
I've never heard that, but I definitely kind of abide by that rule if I'm doing an outdoor kitchen. Mm-hmm. Most people don't want to walk 100 yards with their steak and get to their outdoor kitchen and then realize they forgot the salt. So there are kind of some loose guidelines I have for myself, or I try to consider. But really, some clients are happy to kind of go on a wandering journey to get to a destination that could be right for them and their property. So it's really on a project by project basis, I think.
We had someone else on who has some design background, and one of the things they said I thought was cool is they called it like bubble drawing, where they would start to put elements on the plan, and then I think that was kind of the same thing they were trying to develop, like the relationship of items to each other and the flow. Is that kind of how it goes? Like, do you just start blank slate and start placing stuff, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, the bubble diagram is what I remember from school a lot, kind of getting the program and the elements together, and on really large scale projects that can be hugely beneficial. My process is a little different. It might be because of my journalism background, but I write a lot. I kind of have lists of elements and kind of ideas of maybe even what materials I might be considering using, kind of like all together on a sheet or just in my head filed away. But I don't bubble diagram so much as I write, and then I'm actually getting out the Sharpie and the trace paper and kind of starting to lay out the house, lay out the slopes and the topography, and kind of start to see, where do I have room to do certain things, and maybe like squares instead of bubbles, kind of loosely on top of that until I get it into a place where I think it works well. And there's usually not a right or wrong answer. I mean, I might immediately like a concept right away and think that's the best one, but I try to do 3 to 4 completely different kind of high-level spatial concepts to show the client from the get-go, because what I think works might not work for their family and how they utilize the space. So it's really personal in that way.
Do you ever do a design like for a site that you can't get access to, and like where you can't get in the living space and like understand the relationship between the interior and exterior space? Because you guys, you do design only for clients too, right? Where you don't build it?
Correct, yes.
So are you ever in that circumstance where you can't be there on site to kind of link it all together, or is that a requirement?
I mean, I would prefer to be on site to see everything myself, but certainly we have clients who are just design clients who might even be in different states, but it's a lot of zooming back and forth, photographing the site, and having a dialogue with them about the existing architecture and kind of what their vibe is. But oftentimes we're designing for houses that aren't even built yet.
Oh, right, right.
So there's kind of a little bit of back and forth. Like, we might have a massing for a building and we kind of loosely know where entry doors might be, but that often happens, and then you kind of have a blank slate, which it feels a little dangerous, like to kind of proceed without knowing what's going to be there, because you want it to all work together smoothly, and that might get overlooked if you don't have the whole picture right from the beginning.
I see.
Yeah, because if you're starting with a fresh slate, you probably are working with the home builder GC on what the house is going to look like, right?
Yeah, most of the time. I know there's been examples where, we've had clients who plan to completely redo the house, but they have young children and they immediately want like a new pool before they redo the entire house. So they want to demo the backyard or demo the existing pool and kind of start fresh, knowing that nothing else is going to be there. And that can be a little bit daunting, because the architect, if they hire a great architect afterwards, will be able to work with that, no problem. And we'll certainly think about things that we want to be there after. But yeah, kind of designing for something floating in space isn't very much fun because you don't have any context, and the context, I think, is what roots and grounds things and makes the place so special.
So you guys work with a lot of high-end clients, right? You're in Austin, you're in all the special places. Ben took us to
Westlake
Hills.
There you
is
go.
probably where you were.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're working with high-end clients, and I assume architects. So what's it like working with your type of clientele, and they need a lot of help, or do they know what they want, or what's that like?
I think every client is different. That's probably going to be my answer for everything. It's project specific.
Sure.
Every single one of them is different, but at least for my part of the business, I'm mostly working directly with the homeowners themselves, sometimes with GCs and architects, but my clients are mostly people who have existing homes that are kind of looking for a complete revamp of their outdoor space. So some clients are very hands-off, and they hired Design Ecology for the vision and the craftsmanship and the attention to detail that we provide, and they kind of just want to see what we come up with. They don't want to have a lot of input. And other clients are, texting at all hours of the day about each specific plant, that you want to put in their yard. So it really runs the gamut per project.
What was something that maybe took a minute to wrap your head around when you got into this role? Because, you're getting hired as a designer and you're talking about soils tests. Like, I would be thinking like, hey, I thought we were going to be picking out tiles and, all this other, cool stuff. But I'm looking at dirt. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. I think I wasn't surprised, but it definitely was a learning curve, especially in design build, less so. My previous job to this, I was a landscape architect at a firm where we did like really large scale projects, public works projects, or things like campuses or botanic gardens. So it was really kind of this mega scale, and that was really like bubbles and flows and drawing with big sweeping motions. And this job in design builds, instead of getting a project that's going to be built once every 10 years, we have 10 projects that are being built a year. So it's very fast paced, and you have to wear a lot of hats all the time. So we have to know, not only the design stuff, but I have to know a lot about materials, which is kind of quickly becoming my specialty, I think, in the office. But we also have to know electrical, we have to know plumbing, hydraulics. I have to know a lot of things, or I have to know who to ask if I don't know. And sometimes even figuring out the questions that I need to ask to get to the right solution, that can be a little bit challenging, and that was challenging in the beginning. But I think it's made me a better designer to kind of work at this fast pace and kind of have my hand in all the pieces, because I have a much greater appreciation for the construction process, and I know much more what goes into a pretty photograph when I see the final version. I'm like having post-traumatic stress about like that tiny detail that I took 2 months doing and then it came out beautifully, or, it's really rewarding to kind of have all those hats and be able to create something beautiful.
How do you get to the point where you're doing good work fast? Because I know that takes time, but there's got to be something to that.
I'm pretty self-motivated, and I'm kind of a workaholic. Like if I don't figure out a detail and I know I need to get it done, I'll be in the office on a Friday night, kind of working on it on my own time. But I think the best advice I was ever given, and I don't think this was even relating to landscape architecture, it was something totally different, but someone just told me, make mistakes faster, and that's how you grow and that's how you learn. So I think if you're too caught up in being perfect all the time or getting it right on the first try, you'll just never get there. And so it's a constant process of evolution in the practice and in my personal life. So I just try to kind of go and then talk to people who know more than me after and make sure that it's all getting done to the best quality that we can provide.
How organized are you with that kind of stuff? Like, do you give yourself a deadline on, say you got to map out the concept for a project? Are you pretty regimented like that?
I think I'd like to say yes, but We're working on so many things at the same time that, sometimes we're in the field, sometimes I'm in a CD set. There's 5 CD sets I'm doing. So I'm very organized. I know where all the pieces are, but if I have to make myself a hard deadline, I'll do it. But things often kind of get pushed, hopefully not weeks away, but I try to be a little bit flexible and allow for kind of the present task to happen, and I just kind of work things in when I can.
Right. So Ben was saying when he was on the show that usually you guys wait like a year before taking a photo or taking photos of the end project. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, that is mostly because of the landscape. So we plant things depending on the client. Clients sometimes want everything to be big and beautiful right from the onset, and we can certainly make that happen or try to make that happen. But more often than not, we're getting plants kind of small. So oftentimes we're waiting about a year to get our projects photographed because we also do the landscape. So it's something to have a beautiful pool and hardscape, but if you have these little small plants in the background, it definitely is not the full picture that you envision from the onset. So we try to wait at least a year, sometimes 2, in order for the landscape to kind of grow in and be beautiful, and then you kind of get that beautiful magazine quality photograph. Unless your client buys goats and they eat your landscape every time you plant it, and in which case you never take pictures.
Is that a thing?
That happens. Yeah.
Jeez.
One of my biggest projects, we'll photograph it eventually, but they bought these adorable little goats and they just eat everything constantly. So that's going to be like a 5-year process before we can photograph that one.
How upsetting would that be? Brand new landscape. Shit.
You might see one of those goat skulls in my office.
Right.
Little shit.
So do you have a type of style that you stick to? Obviously like on brand with Design Ecology, or does it vary, or what can you say about that?
I don't think at this point I have tried to stick to a particular style. Design Ecology, we definitely have these high-end projects and water features where we're doing a lot of like knife edge pools and fun overflow features. But for my projects, I have a lot of range on the ones I'm working on right now, and part of that is just, every client is different. They have different personalities. Their homes are architecturally different styles, and I think beauty is diverse, and I'm trying not to pigeonhole myself yet, or design something that doesn't belong, right? I think the goal, at least for me, is to design something that is very functional and aesthetically beautiful, but looks like it could have always been there, or works and is in harmony with the existing conditions of the site and the house.
Yeah. Do you think that limits companies, especially you're in such a tight niche with pools, if you kind of just have like sort of one style and, color scheme and texture that you stick to, do you think that can hurt a company?
I don't know if it would hurt a company. I guess that would depend on the size and the scope of the services that they provide. But by the time a client comes to Design Ecology and they want to hire us, they're usually looking for something pretty custom and special. So I would feel like it would be a disservice to kind of go straight to a strict palette of materials that I'm comfortable using. And I think a lot of the fun and the personality of a project comes alive with the finishes and the final materials. So I try to kind of branch out, and I try to push myself to do something new on every project if it's merited for that project.
What's a good source of inspiration for you? Online, anywhere.
I love books. See, I got a bunch there and a bunch on the ground over there as well.
You're going to make this difficult for us. Which books? You're not trying to spill the secrets. What's a good one?
I'm obsessed with coffee table books, so all my Amazon points go to fancy coffee table books that I can flip through whenever I'm home and I'm looking for inspiration. So right now I'm reading a giant, it's just a giant book of James Turrell's exhibitions, who's like a fascinating lighting designer. He's not a landscape architect, but his projects are gorgeous and I think kind of very space-like. And so if I'm doing like a very modern project, I'll kind of go in a direction like that, or I'll watch some sci-fi movies, or I'll listen to some Radiohead or something weird. I'm a very much like a mood person. So when I start a project, I'm music, movies, writing. I'm trying to create kind of that whole world in my head for how I envision the project going, and that'll kind of guide me as I go throughout the process.
Is that what the studio's like? I want to come visit. Just walk in there and there's like Stanley Kubrick movie going and Radiohead and just designing cool shit.
That's what's going on in my headphones. I don't know what everybody else is doing.
Just the Beatles playing behind your headphones. That's what everyone else is listening to.
Yeah. I mean, that's good vibes. That's pool vibes.
I have a question. This is almost for myself, really, because I'm trying to gain or gather inspiration for my own backyard. And how do you keep track of it all? Like, I find that I'll see stuff, and then I don't have like a catalog, for example, to put it all in. So how do you remember everything you see, or are you finding yourself like earmarking pages? How do you do it? Greg, it's Pinterest. I know already Greg, it's Pinterest.
I know. I was like, have you heard of Pinterest?
It can't be Pinterest.
She's going to say it's in a book on the ground. Next question.
Now, how do you remember? Is that literally like, just something that you earmark pages or what?
Yeah, I do a lot of earmarking pages. I'm addicted to Post-it notes. I probably go through an entire pack a week. I'm constantly like cutting the Post-it notes and sticking them in magazines or books. And I know, and I've gotten better at this because I know I'll put that Post-it and then I'll never look at it again. So I've gotten pretty good at like taking a photo on my phone of that and putting it in a file somewhere. My personal computer, I have, like fire features, orthogonal pools, or like I just have a giant list of places where I can kind of go and kind of look through that for specific elements. Or if it's per project, I have an inspiration folder and I make sure I get it all in there so I can refer back to it and refer clients back to it as well. I will often postmark things and then I'll also take a photograph of it with my phone and make sure I get that into a folder, whether it's per project that I can refer to it on the project and also the clients can refer to it as well, or I have a personal kind of library of a bunch of different elements kind of in an outdoor space where I kind of put things. So if I'm really wanting to do a fire feature, I can look through my fire feature folder and there's a lot of different unique things in there that I've kind of marked throughout the years and see if I see something in there that's kind of getting close to an aesthetic that I envision for the project.
You're talking about how you really like doing the research and sourcing materials and things like that. When I'm flipping through, the internet, Pinterest, or a magazine or a book, you see certain materials that are really rad that haven't been used before, but you can't find, it's really difficult to find like where it was actually made.
Right. That is kind of the eternal struggle. Clients will see something posted on Italian Architectural Digest, and they'll like, I want this specific thing. And you can go on a wild goose chase trying to find or track down what the element is. or so often what happens with us, I'll find the thing, but it won't work in our climate, or I can't submerge it in water, which doesn't work a lot of times when we're thinking about materials for pools. So it can be very difficult to find materials that work and are regional specific and work in Austin's kind of crazy weather we've been having, freeze thaw cycles and all that. So material sourcing is a huge time consuming portion of the job, but I also find that it's the most rewarding. Once you kind of you find a material you've been looking for 6 months or a year, and you finally get it, and it works beautifully, and that's just so satisfying because you haven't seen it before, or we've never had it before, and then you have this whole new kind of palette to work with because that tile company can work with you and do custom things. And so material sourcing is great. It's a lot of fun. I think it's one of my favorite parts of the job.
Then goes the stress of nobody screw this material up because we got the last 1,000 feet that they had on Alibaba that we had to get from China.
Seriously.
Oh my gosh. We have one project that this finally just got installed. It's not photographed yet, but the client really wanted a terracotta brick paver. They already had them, but they were too small. They wanted larger format ones. And this is an example of, I went down the rabbit hole, like trying to find a terracotta paver that was, artisanal, like handcrafted looking, not concrete, but actual terracotta. And something that was larger than like a 12 by 12 or an 8 by 14 piece. And I just couldn't find one anywhere. And I made a lot of calls and I spoke with a lot of people, and they basically told me, look, this is an ancient method they've been using for like hundreds, maybe 1,000 years in certain parts of the world. Like, they only make them, and these are the sizes that they make. These are like small villages where they're producing these. I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But then with enough prodding, I was able to get someone to do a custom. So like, we have an amazing project that hopefully you'll get to see here within the next year when the landscape grows in. But we got these custom made terracotta brick pavers, and I think they might be the largest in the world.
Wow.
They're not massive, but they're large by terracotta brick standards, so they're going to be really impactful and beautiful. And that's an example where it really paid to kind of do the research and digging to make that happen. The client is thrilled, and we're thrilled, and we have something totally unique.
Yeah. Are you somebody that likes to, get samples from these companies or new companies? I find myself wanting to like get these samples, but I'm like, dude, this shit adds up really quick.
Yeah, our sample closet is a little bit crazy right now. I like to get samples, and then I like to throw them out when I know I'm never going to use it, or it's just not applicable to anything we can kind of do in our field. So yes and no.
It's a good idea to throw them out, or else you end up with like a whole side yard full of them eventually, right?
I feel bad for our trash collector people, because sometimes I'll just dump a bunch of heavy clay tile in there. I'm like, well,
sorry.
If they don't take it, then I'll have to take this somewhere else, but it's always gone.
So what the hell do you guys do over there?
What is that?
Well, the thing is, samples, I'm just, because every time I see something online, it seems like it's always different in real life. And I'm always like, I wonder like if that looks, as cool as it does like online. Like if I had it in my hand, would the look, the color, the texture, everything about it, would it be the same in real life as it is in this? Because I've gone to projects where people have like showed what they're using, and I'm like, this doesn't look like what I saw online. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's constantly what we struggle with, when we're trying to sell a material or get a client to envision. Our vision is, we have this like little chip, right? And we're trying to get them to see the whole, giant wall that it's going to be on. And we know it's going to look good, or we think it's going to look good, and the client just can't see it. And 3D rendering can only go so far sometimes. But sometimes you just don't know. But I think more often than not, you have all the materials and they relate together well, and then you'll have something that works, as long as it makes sense in your palette. It's not just this oddball that's, in there, and you're crossing your fingers and hoping it's going to turn out. Context is important.
I'm going to stop in this area of inspiration because I feel like I could just sit here for way too long.
Greg's going to fire up Pinterest any minute.
I was going to say, I don't know if you've heard of it, but Milanote is freaking awesome. You ever use Milanote?
I've never heard of that. I will immediately look after
You will thank me later because of what Justin asked. It's just pretty much like a large, like endless board, but you screenshot, you just dump things in it, and you can categorize a different board. It's really easy to use, but for trying to gather inspiration, it's pretty dope.
Is it, does it exist kind of on the cloud, online, or is it more of a...
Yeah, it's online, and they have an app for iPhone anyway. I don't know about
Milanote?
Yeah, Milanote.
Milanote.
Cool.
Milanote. Yeah, I probably said it wrong.
I might thank you later, or just be like, another one of these things where I'm going to use it and abandon it.
It's pretty legit. I think you'll like it.
Okay. I'll check it. Thank you.
Greg has an app for everything, by the way. Greg is the guy who's got on his computer running like Monday. He's got I have so many logins just dealing with Greg for every single Notion, and just ridiculous. So
Well,
I'm not surprised Greg knew that, to be honest with you.
So you're well organized then.
He's organized to the point that I don't even know how he keeps up with all of his organizational streams. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
You need one master organization stream just to organize all your streams. It's ridiculous.
I had it
Need an
written on a piece of
organizer.
paper.
I have a spreadsheet.
Yeah, there you go. That'll stand the test of time.
So do you have a preference, small or large projects? Do you have one you like designing better?
Both. I love big and small projects. Some projects that are huge I wish could be a little smaller, and some of the small ones I wish I had just a couple more feet on in some cases.
Yeah.
But I'm working some of my favorite projects that are finished or kind of getting close to being finished are smaller projects, and I think that's because you really do get to spend time and kind of marinate in the details and the layering, because you can see everything at once, so a lot of care has to be taken in the detailing and the materials that you choose on the smaller projects, and obviously how you organize the space. What I love about the small projects is you really do kind of have to pay attention to all of the details, because you're going to see everything. It has to kind of be executed perfectly. How you organize space becomes very, very important in a small space to make it feel bigger or to separate programs. So I think they're more challenging, but they're also really rewarding when they come out and the client tells you how much use they get out of it and how much they love it. So I think maybe I'm leaning towards the smaller ones, just because they're so carefully considered.
So I do have a question that I'm going to interject here, and you led up to it perfectly. What is your most rewarding project? And was it small or big?
Good question. My most rewarding project.
Yeah, favorite, most rewarding, or
This one we haven't photographed yet, but I think I'm going to go small. I'm going to go tiny on this one. This was a condo in a nice part of town that had kind of a courtyard separated into 3 spaces. So there was a smaller space in the back. The middle space was kind of open to 2 sides of the condo. And then there was kind of like a little there was a little kind of tucked away area where it was probably storage. It was like a long, narrow pathway to another wall, kind of as a part of that. And there was a 2.5 foot wide opening to get into the courtyard, and you had to go downstairs to get there. So logistically, it took a long time to build this project because we had subs. They couldn't work at the same time because they had to all enter and exit the same way. We got 1 tree in there, and we had to crane it in, and that was amazing to see. And get that in there. But the project ended up being so rewarding because I'm still close with the client, and she texts me all the time, and she says, thank you so much. I use this every day. Like there's an outdoor shower that's kind of a feature in that project where we made this like beautiful unfolding kind of origami deck through some screens. And she says there's a pool at her space, but there's a shower too. And she says she uses it twice a day sometimes, and she just can't get enough of the whole space. And before it was just a courtyard full of dirt, so we really made it very special. And just hearing how much a client loves it and uses it, that's the best compliment I think a designer can receive.
I bet. That's awesome.
One day you'll be able to see that. I'll hopefully get pictures of that one soon. We're doing some refresh planting, and then it'll be good to go.
Awesome.
So when designing a backyard with a pool, what are you expected to know in terms of design?
Well, I think because we're Austin based, again, that soil, the geotech report is going to be huge. We have to know kind of what we're working with, because that's going to determine right away if we're going to be able to hit our clients' budget goals or not. If you're going to need 10 piers, we might have to make your pool smaller or pull back on the landscape or do something totally different. So I think number 1 is the soils, and how to read that geotech report and find the information you need in there, because they're pretty dense. And secondly, Ben and Scott, they're very good at the plumbing and speccing all the equipment. They're really known, like what they love to do is make the most efficient systems, and they've kind of passed that down to me. So on my projects, I'm at the point now where I can figure out how to make certain pools and with different features, how to plumb them, and even calculate flow rates and things like that. So that's a huge part of it, is speccing how the pool is going to be plumbed and function properly and most efficiently.
So why would it do? Yeah, I was just about to say, why would you need to know that?
Well, why wouldn't you want to know that?
There's like a separation, I feel like, for us in our market. Like you have like the design end and like the construction end, and there's like a very solid line in there where like the designers, like to the extent that they need the information to do the design, that's what they know. I can't imagine any designers. Greg, can you think of, I mean, outside of maybe like Rick Chafee or something like that, but that's crazy. Like you can spec like by velocity and all that.
Yeah, I mean, we have worksheets. I couldn't do it off the top of my head, but I've gotten to do enough of these diagrams now where I can confidently get all the equipment in there, the sizing, and figure out the flow rates. And that is something I think that might be special or unique to Design Ecology, and that they really, Scott and Ben both want us to know how it works so that we can be better designers and be just masters at our craft.
Awesome.
I was going to say, is that because, say you see something on Instagram, Pinterest, or in one of your books, and you're like, let's do this. But if you understand like how hydraulics and plumbing works, then you'll be able to tell if that's realistic or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another side of that is, we're not just trying to copy things that we've seen in books. I know we're both, Jason, my coworker, and I, we're both associate designers. We want to do new things. We want to be able to create new features, and we can't do that if we don't have an understanding of the plumbing and the hydraulics that do that, that go into that. Scott Cummings is a master at that. Like he creates a lot of these fun details and exquisite details that you see on some of our really high-end pools. He can figure out how to create new features hydraulically and with materials, and I think that he wants us to be at a place where we can do that too. So we're constantly innovating and not just trying to mimic.
Hard to be original, right? You get inspiration from everywhere to kind of, make something unique from, things that have inspired you. Especially if you have this walk of life, journalist living in Vegas, and this is the style that you gravitate towards, it's all going to, create something different that's unique to you, right?
Yeah, and you can't really innovate if you don't know the basics. So by no means am I a master at that yet. I am still very green and learning every day, especially on the hydraulic side, but I definitely hope to be there, so I can be a creator. That's what we aim to do.
So some of the technical stuff, so you're like form and function at this point, because I was going to say, you are kind of more the form, and those guys are, the function, but, outside of that, what else do you need to know?
Yeah, so outside of the, the fun soil testing and the engineering part of it, we're designers, we're trained designers at heart, so we use a variety of visual communications to design the project, but to kind of visualize it for our clients, so that we can give them a loose idea of what we're trying to build and trying to do for them. So hand rendering is not my best skill, but I use it a lot, and it's something I'm constantly trying to improve. So definitely sketching, hand rendering, and we use a lot of AutoCAD into SketchUp, and then SketchUp into a rendering software. We're kind of in between programs right now, but some Lumion, some Lightroom, whatever we can do to visually communicate with our clients, and between ourselves, we learn so we can be effective.
Dude, that's awesome. And SketchUp is so crazy. I know how to use a lot of online tools, but when I watch Justin on SketchUp, I'm like, dude, what the freak? Like, I didn't even know you were capable of doing some of the things that you can do in SketchUp. Are you pretty good in that program?
SketchUp is awesome, and I feel like there are so many plugins and things that you can get for it that will make your life so much easier if only you knew where to look and how to find them. But I would say I'm average at SketchUp. I can do all of the basics, but I really need to kind of delve a little deeper into some of these plugins and find some ways to just make my life more efficient.
So what, maybe I'm just like forgetting, but the design you might be doing in SketchUp, like, what is all in that design, and who's it going to? Is it usually like to the homeowner or to the home builder? And is it like all the choices for plants and all that other stuff?
So we don't always do a 3D model, but it helps often for people to visualize the space, especially if there's confusing elevations within the space or how it relates to the house. It can be faster to almost whip something up quickly in 3D, even if it's just a massing, to kind of show them how all those pieces will work. But we use it for small details, like a connection on how like a big boulder is going to meet another boulder, small details like that, or everything from like a full house, pool, hardscape, and some plants. We don't usually get too specific with plants, but we have a little library that we pull from of some kind of basic plants, just so you can see where we would probably put them in the landscape to kind of soften all the hard elements in there. But yeah, builders and clients alike, we use it all the time.
This answer is probably going to have again, will probably be a range, but in general, what is it taking you to turn around a project like the design? And I know that varies on the size, but like on average, like is it like engage them and you're 6 months start to finish, or what is the average to get it to the point where you can build it?
Yeah, a turnaround time, you're looking for
Yeah.
kind of a schedule. It definitely varies, and that is a lot client driven. So, if they want a specific material, it's something that we have to get from another country. Lead times, those can start to add up and really delay projects. And so can weather. We have had those big freezes, and that's kind of wreaked a lot of devastation and pushed back sometimes. But I would say on like a medium-sized project, from having initial client meetings to getting on site, developing your concepts, budgeting, and then building, a year to 2 years is
I was thinking.
is a good window.
Yeah. It's a lot, right? I mean, you got to pick.
Yeah.
I mean, basically you pick everything for them, right? I mean, is there anything that you don't like have to put in your selections list for them? Because it's everything. Do you do the furniture as well, like outdoor furnishings, or is that not included on your plans?
I would if they let me.
Really?
I certainly would. Yeah. There's, again, I'm kind of like a full picture person. I like to think of the whole story and the whole mood of the project. So if the client wants me to kind of help them and assist them in that endeavor, I will certainly pick out furniture and lighting fixtures, and I'll take the time to kind of design everything.
Yeah.
Because nothing is worse than, and you've probably seen it, happen before. You finish this project and you've thought through every detail, and then you go away, and then someone buys a bunch of furniture or is gifted furniture that is like a totally different like architectural style than the project, or just doesn't fit. It's like Disneyland out there, and you really can't photograph it because that's what your eye sees. It sees the thing that stands out. It doesn't see the kind of flow and the harmony of all the elements that you've put together. Your eye is going to go straight to the oddball.
Well, it's like,
so I would prefer for that to not happen.
that's like Lautner, right? I think we've talked about before. Didn't he start designing the furniture into his projects, like permanent furniture? Isn't that?
I think so. I have a Lautner book. I haven't cracked it open.
Yeah,
yet.
he did, inside and outside.
Yeah, inside the home and out, because he was sick of coming back and people screwing it up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I totally can relate. Yeah, I wish we had enough capacity to where we could even design our furniture and build our furniture maybe down the line. But yeah, that would be really cool.
You want to move this couch, you got to chip it out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got a pier underneath of it.
Right. So if you were going to build, say I wanted you to build me a backyard and I want it to be totally Austin themed. I don't know the size. Maybe I'm on half an acre. I don't know. But like, what material selection would you put on that?
Skull head for sure.
Okay. Yeah, skull heads
Obviously.
everywhere. And the pricklier the plants, the better. I think kind of when I think of Austin vibe, I think of like a ranch style project, and that would be, plant palette, lots of agaves, lots of yuccas, lots of native grasses, things that don't need a lot of water and that are going to last through a freeze. Our palette's becoming smaller and smaller as the years go by with all of this crazy weather we've been having. But I would definitely play up the kind of like the desert ranchy theme with the plants. And I'd probably use a bunch of locally sourced materials for hardscape, Luter's limestone and buff. That's going to be like my go-to ranch color. It's just a neutral, creamy limestone, and it holds up really well outside and around pools. And you can get it in any size you want. So big features, things that you can carve out and take away, and thin veneer. You can get it in anything.
What was that? You said buff, or is that what you said?
Buff.
What is
Yeah,
that?
buff.
The color you were just describing? I've never heard of that before.
It's the condition you see. No, I'm just kidding.
It's this.
Yeah. So we have Luter's limestone. Anybody in the central Texas area will be familiar with this product. It's on everything. And I know we often talk about how sick we are of using it, but we use it for a reason. It's quarried outside of Austin, and it comes in a buff, creamy color. And it also comes in a gray charcoal color and even a blue color. But within that, there's a lot of variation as well.
I dig it. What would the pool tile pattern color be?
I knew that was going to be your next question. I just couldn't think of...
You were stalling, huh? You're like, damn it. Mm-hmm.
You know what I would love to do, which I think would be very Austin and very ranchy and haven't gotten to do yet, is like a brown sort of tile, probably something artisanal and thicker, chunkier, like maybe a clay tile with a tan to milk chocolate glaze on it. I think that would look spectacular with like a medium gray finish pool or a dark pool. You just don't see browns very much anymore, and
I like that.
I think that
White, gray,
I think
black.
they're going to have a resurgence. It will be done.
I just got done painting everything white, gray, and black in my house, so I'm hoping it's a while.
Well, you missed the vivid magenta color of the year memo.
Is that right? Is that the thing?
Yeah, pink.
Vivid magenta.
Pink's everywhere. Should have gone pink.
Barbie, man.
Or, no, it's Viva. I think it's Viva magenta.
Nice. Have you seen
Yeah,
this?
the Barbie pink.
This is totally off topic, but have you seen the black, like Vanta black that they made? It was like the blackest black that absorbs all the light. Have you ever seen that?
I have not seen it, but I've read and heard about it.
Okay.
Right? It just kind of is a void almost, like
Yes.
a black hole. It's so black that
It takes
you
3D out.
Yeah, that's wild.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd want to swim in something like that. I'd feel like I was in a black hole.
No, they made a pink. They made a pink version now.
But it flattens everything?
I don't know. I might have just skimmed the article, but apparently they came up with, so they ended up doing a white, which I don't know if it has the same properties or whatever, but they call it, it's a pink. It's like the world's pinkest pink.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll tell you what.
I would love to see it
Greg-
if you would send it.
Greg, you asked the next question. I'm going to find it right now, and I'm going to tell you.
Well, while you do that, let me just put in this shameless plug, because since I've been working at Design Ecology, I've been telling Ben and Scott that all I really want to do is do an all mosaic tile pool with like a candy pink
Ooh.
interior, and to make like a, just a super pop-tastic sculptural pink pool. And nobody's taken me up on it. And I thought I think they thought I was crazy for the first few years and were, questioning my taste level. But then this year came around and pink was everywhere. And even those downtime slides, they have a beautiful candy pink one. And
I was just about to say.
I'd keep telling them. I was like, I told you I was onto something with this. So if anybody out there wants one, please call Design Ecology, and I'm your girl. I'll get it done.
We had Rick Chafee on, and he did a purple pool.
Wow.
Yeah, in Arizona.
Very cool.
Right, Greg? Wasn't it purple? The Target CEO, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, pool? But that was an all glass tile.
No, it was pebble because he had.
It was like the one and only.
They dyed the pebble.
Yeah, it was the one and only purple pool. It's pretty rad.
Yeah, it's custom.
How long ago did they do it? I'd love to see that.
10 years or 15 years. If you go to their site, Ben and Rick are obviously friends, so I think we can cross promote here. But if you go to his site, he's got pictures of it up on it. It's pretty rad. I mean, it's a pretty dark purple, but you could tell it's purple.
Yeah, it's purple.
Cool. I mean,
it's pretty rad. Okay.
I will check it out.
So I like the Austin pool backyard that you designed for me, and I dig the brown tile. It reminds me of kind of like Mission style mixed in with like old kind of like Mexican restaurant or something like that. I could see some maybe like flat yellows back there with the brown and gravel and all that. That'd be sick.
Yeah,
all the
absolutely.
cactuses. I dig it. Let's see it happen.
Yeah.
Maybe some goats. Were you going to put some goats out there for me?
I was going to say, just don't get any goats, please.
That's awesome.
Did you find it, Justin?
Yeah, but I don't want to tell you what it says. It's actually, it's called, it's the world's pinkest pink. And when you go onto the site, you have to sign in and say you are not Anish Kapoor, who was the creator of Vanta Black. So it's pinkest pink.
Weird.
It's not worth dipping too much into, but yeah.
I'm like scared to look at
know.
it, just being shocked.
It's got a picture. It's got a picture of it. I don't know. You need to check it out. It is the pinkest pink. I mean, this is the pinkest pink I've ever seen in my life. So,
is it is it hot pink or is it like Pepto pink?
No, it's like hot Barbie pink. I mean, they describe it as the world's pinkest pink. This is exactly how I would imagine the world's pinkest pink. So, it's pretty rad. Okay.
I want that
Sorry, guys.
on the bottom of my snowboard, like go up, and people are just like, "Oh my god, that's so pink!"
Like safety.
Yeah.
Pink. They have the t-shirt colors.
It's definitely pretty rad.
Yeah, could we do that, Justin? We do the safety yellow and safety orange. Could we do the safety pink?
Sure, that's a thing, right?
Like, God, that is the pinkest damn shirt.
It is a thing.
That is so rad.
It's called, it's their safety pink in Heliconia. I was a graphic designer at this is hilarious. I don't know if this will make it the cut, but one of my odd jobs when I was living in Chicago in between school and grad school is I worked as a graphic designer for a professional wrestling t-shirt company.
Oh.
So designing t-shirts and we had all these wrestlers who would come in all the time, and they had stores up on the site. It's called Professional Wrestling Tees, but we did a lot of pink.
Really?
I could see that.
Yep.
I know. What was it like the 90s, like WrestleMania? That was like super in like black, white, pink.
Black, white, pink. Yeah, it's still a thing. And there are still so many wrestling fans. It's that I really had no clue.
It's a stupid
that
business.
Was
It's insane.
a fun world to be a part of for a while. It really opened up my eyes.
Do you have any plants or materials you most enjoy working with?
Yeah, this is going to kind of mirror your Austin designed pool and landscape. I really love, agaves, native grasses, and cacti, the few that we can, that grow and do well here in Austin. I really like to use them. Anything very architectural like that, I think is just, can make a lot of visual impact with not a lot of them, and they light up well at night. So plant palette, I'm definitely, it's that Vegas in me too. I will like the desert kind of plants the most, I think. But it's project specific. I won't put it on a project just to do it. So, but those are the plants I really love working with. And then for materials, I think anything artisanal, handcrafted feeling, you know, that has like a texture to it. Again, working with a lot of clay tiles or terracotta materials, anything that's kind of, that doesn't look too highly manufactured. I kind of like those imperfect materials. I think they can do a lot and make the project look really unique.
Awesome.
I'm sure that's got to be difficult in making a space look like it was always there. You know, it's like if you just walked out in the open, if Sedona or somewhere in Texas or Vegas even, you know, that the stuff you see has always been there. But to create a backyard that's like visually pleasing, but it doesn't look overdone, it's like just right, and you know, you could use it comfortably. There's a real skill to that.
Yeah, definitely. I want to also say we will make it better than if it was just there from the beginning. You know, we want it to be the upgraded version, of course, but yeah, you know, no one wants to put something that's, unless you're in Vegas and you want to put like a spaceship in your backyard, that's typically not what people are going for. So we try to make everything feel like it's in harmony.
That'd be a cool feeling, you know, as a designer. Like, my name's nowhere on this, but just to see it. And I know in the real world, maybe it's like they work together on it or something, but you know, that's pretty dope.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Definitely. I think, you know, with enough time, maybe, you know, I could be known for something like that. I love to do raised edge pools and really special tiles, and kind of a signature of mine is becoming like these huge firewalls. We have a couple of them on a few projects, so that hopefully in the future,
Right on.
someone can say that's a Brittany Duncan Design Ecology landscape.
does Ben and Scott, do they ask you guys to do a little bit more sort of, you know, self-promoting, self-branding kind of what you do within the business, say on Instagram or LinkedIn, Pinterest? Like, how do you view that side of things?
They certainly don't ask us to do any independent self-promotion, but they, you know, Scott is typically the person who meets with the clients first and does like an initial meeting, and he's a pretty good judge of, you know, right away, like, is this person, do they have a vibe that's going to be like more Brittany's style or more Jason's style, or personality, and he kind of matches us up that way. You know, like if he had someone who come in and say, I want a pink bowl, bang, that would be my project.
How pissed would you be if it wasn't? It went to the other guy.
He would never.
Like, this is a joke, right?
Awesome.
No, because you're going to be working on Greg's Austin pool. Screw that guy. I want the pink pool.
Look, I can work on many projects at once.
How many projects do you work on at once usually? Or maybe right now?
I was trying to count in my head when you were asking that. I would say anywhere from 10 to 20, and they're all in various stages. So some are in the queue, some are on punch list. You know, 4 of them are in CDs, and the rest are in conceptual. It really varies, but we're often working on at least 10 at once.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, but it's great because, you know, if you're well organized and you can kind of keep a good pace, one day you come in and you just can't do a shop drawing. You know, you're just not in it, the mindset, but you can draw because you have a project that you need to kind of conceptually design on. So, you know, you're able to kind of move and create your day around how you're feeling creatively. And that's a huge plus to having so many projects at once.
So do you have a detail that you've designed that you haven't built yet, or something that isn't out yet?
Yeah, I did a really fun unfolding deck at a project that had a very narrow space, and the the client wanted, it must have been like a 5-foot wide corridor by like 20 feet. And the client wanted an outdoor shower. They also had a bunch of art that they wanted to display in the space. So I had this idea for, kind of staggered screens, so that if you were at the front looking down the passageway, you wouldn't see the person showering. So they were kind of offset screens. And then in front of that, planting, and then a space for artwork. But you kind of wound your way through it on this very narrow deck. And because it was such a tight space and it was such a small deck, I had a lot of fun playing with it. I made it like an origami kind of an idea, where like all of the boards were oriented in one way, and when it turned a corner, it almost like folded in on itself, and the corner was cut at a 45, and then it kind of unfolded almost like a fortune cookie.
Wow. Back
to the end, and it turned out awesome. The carpenter did an amazing job on that, and it's special when you're on it. And that small detail was not something I'd ever seen, but the client, she worked in Asia like 6 months out of the year, and so she was really inspired by these kind of Asian themes, and so that was a fun little piece that we put in there, and it turned out really beautiful.
That sounds rad. I can't wait to see that.
So thank you so much, Brittany. Appreciate your time. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, so designecology.com, that's our website. And you can also find us on Instagram. That is where our most recent projects are kind of constantly being updated. I think it's just instagram.com/Design Ecology.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.